The world is watching, eyes glued to every headline and every breaking update. A new and dangerous chapter is unfolding in the ongoing great power competition between the United States and China, two nations whose ambitions and interests are colliding on the global stage. The latest flashpoint is the Caribbean, where the U.S. has imposed a sweeping blockade on Venezuela. The goal: to choke off vital oil revenue to Nicolas Maduro's government, hoping to force political change. But this bold move directly confronts China, Venezuela's largest oil customer and a key economic partner. The blockade has rapidly escalated tensions, drawing both superpowers into a high-stakes standoff. For Washington, the blockade is a strategic tool, an attempt to enforce its foreign policy objectives and demonstrate its influence in the Western Hemisphere. For Beijing, however, it's seen as an act of economic aggression, a form of bullying that threatens China's energy security and its broader interests in Latin America. China's swift and vocal condemnation signals its refusal to bow to U.S. pressure and its determination to defend its global interests. As these two giants stand firm, the world holds its breath, wondering if this standoff could spiral into direct conflict or trigger a wider crisis. The crisis, ignited by the U.S. seizure of a Venezuelan oil tanker, is just one episode in a broader rivalry that is shaping the future of the global order and redefining alliances. The United States now scrambles to fill a potential $100 billion oil gap, facing tough questions about energy security and economic stability. Meanwhile, China moves quickly to protect its supply chains, seeking new partners and questioning the reliability of American leadership in a rapidly changing world. This is a story of oil, power, and the fragile balance of the 21st century international order, a moment that could define the next era of global relations. On December 16, 2025, the U.S. announced a sweeping and unprecedented total blockade of Venezuelan oil tankers, escalating its campaign from financial sanctions to direct naval interdiction. This marked a dramatic turning point in the ongoing standoff between Washington and Caracas, as American warships moved to physically halt Venezuela's oil exports in the Caribbean Sea. The goal was clear: choke off President Maduro's last major source of income and force a dramatic political shift in Venezuela. By targeting the country's oil lifeline, the U.S. aimed to tighten the economic noose and push the regime to the brink. The blockade came on the heels of a high-profile U.S. seizure of a Venezuelan tanker, a move that sent shockwaves through the global oil industry and signaled America's willingness to use hard military power to enforce its sanctions. Now, U.S. Navy vessels patrol the waters off Venezuela's coast around the clock, creating a formidable and highly visible barrier to any attempt at oil trade. The message is unmistakable: no oil leaves Venezuela without American approval. The global oil market reels as Venezuela's supply vanishes almost overnight, causing wild price swings, uncertainty, and panic among traders. Oil-dependent economies scramble to adjust, while energy companies brace for further disruptions. The U.S. is betting that the world can absorb the shock, hoping that the potential political gain in Venezuela will ultimately outweigh the economic pain and volatility now rippling through global markets. But this is about more than just economics. It's a bold geopolitical statement of American resolve and willingness to act decisively, even when the risks are high and the outcome uncertain. The blockade demonstrates the U.S. willingness to act unilaterally, even in the face of criticism and without broad international support. Washington is making it clear that it will not wait for consensus when its interests are at stake. The world watches with bated breath to see if this show of force will succeed in toppling Maduro, or if it will backfire, risking greater instability and possibly igniting a wider regional crisis. America's gamble now depends not only on its own resolve, but also on the cooperation of global partners and the continued stability of international energy flows. The stakes could not be higher. Will this bold move achieve its aims and reshape Venezuela's future, or provoke a backlash that ultimately undermines U.S. interests and global stability? China's response to the U.S. blockade was swift and fierce, condemning it as unilateralism and bullying. For Beijing, the U.S. is acting as a global policeman, violating international law and threatening China's economic interests. China is Venezuela's largest oil buyer, with billions invested and loans repaid in crude. Walking away would mean financial loss and appearing weak, unacceptable for a rising power. This is about more than oil. It's about China's emergence as a global force, unwilling to accept U.S. dominance. By standing firm, Beijing signals to the global south that it offers an alternative to the American-led order. While direct military confrontation is unlikely, China will use diplomatic, economic and logistical tools to counter the blockade. Its response is calculated: challenge the US, protect its interests, but avoid escalation. The crisis reveals China's growing strategic maturity on the world stage. China has proven remarkably resilient against US sanctions, deploying a sophisticated and multi-layered strategy to safeguard its vital Venezuelan oil imports. Despite mounting international pressure, China has managed to keep its energy lifeline flowing, adapting quickly to new challenges and restrictions. At the heart of this strategy is a massive floating stockpile, over 20 million barrels of oil, anchored just off the coasts of Singapore and Malaysia. This enormous reserve acts as a buffer, providing China with several months of supply even if imports are disrupted, and allowing it to weather short-term shocks in the global oil market. Chinese buyers rely on a shadowy, highly coordinated network. Tankers frequently go dark, turning off their transponders to avoid detection, while oil is transferred between ships at sea under the cover of night. Official customs data is carefully managed to obscure the true flow of Venezuelan crude into China. Independent refiners, known as teapots, are key players in this system. They eagerly snap up Venezuela's Mare crude at steep discounts, often taking on significant legal and financial risks. For these smaller refineries, the potential profits make the gamble worthwhile. After the US seized a tanker, the price of Mare crude plunged, selling for $12 less per barrel than global benchmarks. This price gap has only increased the appeal for Chinese buyers, who see an opportunity to secure cheap energy. This intricate system of stockpiling, covert transfers, and opportunistic buying demonstrates China's long-term, strategic approach to energy security. It's a complex web designed to outmaneuver sanctions and ensure a steady flow of oil. According to energy analysts, the current blockade is unlikely to cause a supply crunch for China until at least March 2026. This gives Beijing a significant window to adapt and respond. With time on its side, Beijing can arrange alternative sources, strengthen its partnerships, and carefully plan its next move to maintain energy security. Ultimately, China has built a formidable firewall, operating within a parallel global trade system that shields its energy interests from external threats and keeps its economy running. The US blockade of Venezuela is having unintended consequences in Asia, especially around Taiwan. By using a naval blockade for political ends, the US gives China a propaganda tool, justifying similar tactics for its own internal security. China's military drills simulating a Taiwan blockade now seem more legitimate to some nations. The US Navy's focus on the Caribbean strains its ability to respond quickly in the Taiwan Strait. Allies question America's consistency. If the US uses blockades, what stops China from doing the same? In trying to solve one problem, the US may be creating a bigger one in the Indo-Pacific. The legal basis for the US blockade is hotly debated. Blockades are acts of war, usually reserved for declared conflicts. By acting outside a state of war, the US sets a dangerous precedent, weakening the rules that have kept the seas open. China could use this example to justify a future blockade of Taiwan, claiming it's following America's lead. The US condemns China's coercion in Asia, yet uses similar tactics in the Caribbean, sending mixed signals to allies and adversaries. This contradiction erodes US moral authority and the rules-based order. If great powers bend the law for convenience, others will follow, threatening freedom of navigation worldwide. The blockade meant to isolate Venezuela may one day be used to isolate US allies. The Venezuelan oil standoff is a microcosm of the US-China rivalry shaping our world. The US uses naval power to force regime change. China counters with economic and logistical strength. The blockade brings volatility to energy markets and strains US military resources. By normalizing blockades, Washington may have handed Beijing a justification for future moves against Taiwan. China's oil stockpile buys it time to strategize, while the US must reassure allies and manage global fallout. Ixtatsa shows how great power actions ripple worldwide, forcing smaller nations to navigate a treacherous landscape. The coming months will reveal if this confrontation can be de-escalated, or if it marks a new, more dangerous phase in global competition.